In 90 minutes, they all die screaming. Hassan Nazari's voice cracked with pleasure as he armed the detonator. His hands caressed the device controlling 12 metric tons of ammonium nitrate rigged beneath Kandahar's water treatment facility. 300,000 people, men, women, children, all about to drink poison. He raised his binoculars watching a mother fill her daughter's water bottle at a nearby well and laughed so hard, tears streamed down his face. "Let the Americans send their best snipers," he snarled, checking his watch. 4 kilometers away, they'll miss every shot while I sit here and watch their failure. Smash that subscribe button and drop your city in the comments. You'll want to see how we wipe that smile off his face. Before we continue with Hassan's final hours, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Dale Kowalski's handheld radio crackled at 0447 hours. Command to Overwatch. Target confirmed. 4,000 meters bearing 270. Timer shows 86 minutes. Kowalski pressed the radio against his weathered face, tasting dust and defeat before the mission even started. 23 years in special operations had taught him to recognize impossible when it stared him down. 4,000 meters wasn't a distance, it was a prayer wrapped in mathematics and luck. Copy that command. Positioning shooters now. Beside him, Master Sergeant Chen exhaled slowly. 4 clicks in this heat, Dale. We'd need God himself behind the scope. Then let's hope he's taking requests. Kowalski turned to face the 13 snipers assembled on the ridgeline, their faces grim in the pre-dawn darkness. 13 of the finest long-range shooters the Joint Special Operations Command could deploy on 6 hours' notice. Rangers, Delta Marine Scout snipers, even 2 British SAS advisors who'd flown in from Hereford. Each one had confirmed kills beyond 3,000 meters. Each one knew what 4,000 meant. The desert stretched before them, like hammered bronze already shimmering with heat at not yet 5 a.m. Somewhere in that vast emptiness, Hassan Nazari sat with his finger on genocide. "Listen up," Kowalski barked. "Target is a confirmed HVT with a dead man switch. We cannot, I repeat, cannot use missiles, artillery, or air support. The detonator is pressure sensitive and radio linked. Our intelligence says he releases the trigger the device activates. He receives any radio interference the device activates. We spook him into running. He's got a 3-minute delay timer as insurance." "Jesus," someone muttered. "Intel also confirms he's got counter-surveillance thermals and motion sensors covering every approach within 2 clicks. This is a shooting solution or nothing." Kowalski paused, letting the weight settle. 4,000 meters, 1 shot, 84 minutes. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, a Marine sniper with 63 confirmed kills, spoke up. "What's the wind doings?" "Variable 8 to 15, gusting to 22. Direction shifting every 4 to 7 minutes. Thermals are already building. By the time we're set up, we'll have full Mirage heat columns and probably some dust devils for good measure." "Fantastic," Chen muttered. Kowalski pulled out a tactical map, spreading it across the hood of their vehicle. "He's here, elevated position on a plateau. We're here. The water treatment facility is here. According to the timer intel, we've got until 0613 hours. After that, 300,000 people drink poison." The number hung in the air like smoke. "Who's first?" Kowalski asked. Rodriguez stepped forward immediately. "I'll take it." They moved fast, setting up the Barrett M. 82A1 on its bipod sandbags, position scope calibrated. Rodriguez settled behind the rifle with the practiced ease of 1,000 range sessions. His spotter, Corporal Mendez, lay beside him with the spotting scope feeding calculations. Wind at 12 knots, shifting northeast. Humidity 7%. Temperature 94 and climbing. Barometric pressure dropping. Rodriguez adjusted his scope. 4,000 meters. The bullet would travel for nearly 6 seconds, dropping over 500 feet, drifting dozens of meters in the crosswind. It wasn't shooting, it was prophecy. He controlled his breathing, finding that space between heartbeats where everything stopped. The shot cracked across the desert. 6 seconds of silence. "Miss," Mendez said quietly. "No impact visible on target or surrounding area." Kowalski checked his watch. 79 minutes. Next, Sergeant Davies' SAS took position. His rifle was a custom L-115A3, the same model that had achieved the British Army's longest confirmed kill in Afghanistan. He went through the same ritual wind calculation, elevation adjustment, breathing control. The shot echoed. 6 seconds. "Miss, I saw dust kick up maybe 15 meters right of target." 74 minutes. The third sniper was Delta, a quiet operator named Martinez, who'd once hit a target at 3,720 meters in Iraq. He spent 7 minutes calculating, checking, rechecking. When he finally fired, everyone held their breath. Miss, 12 meters short, 68 minutes. The fourth sniper, a ranger named Cooper, actually laughed as he set up. This is insane. You know that, right? Insane is what we do, Kowalski replied. Shoot. Cooper fired. Miss, 20 meters left. The fifth sniper didn't speak at all, just methodically prepared and fired. Miss, 61 minutes. The sixth sniper was sweating so badly his spotter had to wipe the scope between calculations. Miss. The bullet didn't even reach the plateau. 56 minutes. By the seventh sniper, the sun was fully up, and the desert had transformed into a liquid hellscape. Mirage waves rolled across the landscape, distorting distance, bending light, turning solid ground into shimmering water. The wind gusted and died and gusted again, unpredictable as dice. I can't even see the target clearly, the spotter said. It's like shooting through water. Shoot anyway. Miss, 51 minutes. The eighth sniper fired 3 times before Kowalski stopped him. All misses. 47 minutes. The ninth sniper actually hit the plateau, sending up a plume of dust 30 meters from Nazari's position. It was the closest anyone had come, and it meant absolutely nothing. He knows we're here now, Chen said, watching through high-powered optics. He's laughing. I can see him laughing. 42 minutes. The 10th sniper was the youngest, barely 25, a prodigy, who'd set records at every range he'd touched. His hands trembled slightly as he loaded the round. Breathe, his spotter said. You've got this. He didn't. Miss, 38 minutes. The 11th sniper refused to fire. This is suicide. We need a different solution. There is no different solution. Shoot or step aside. He stepped aside, 35 minutes. The 12th sniper took 15 minutes to calculate using every atmospheric measurement tool they had, consulting ballistic computers, conferring with his spotter in whispers. When he finally fired, everyone was certain this was it. The bullet struck rock 3 meters behind Nazari's position. Damn it! The sniper shouted, slamming his fist against the ground. God damn it! 30 minutes! The 13th sniper was Chen himself. He'd been saving his attempt, watching everyone else, learning from their misses. He was a student of wind, a mathematician of death. If anyone could calculate this impossible shot, it was him. He fired. The bullet vanished into the mirage, swallowed by heat and distance and the indifferent desert. No impact, his spotter said. Chen, I'm sorry, I don't think... I know. Chen stood up, brushing dust from his uniform. It can't be done, not like this, not at this distance, with these conditions. Kowalski stared at his watch. 26 minutes. 26 minutes until 300,000 people started dying, and he had absolutely no plan. Command, this is Overwatch, he said into the radio, his voice hollow. 13 attempts, 13 misses, requesting alternate solutions. The response came back immediately, clipped and final. Negative, Overwatch. No alternate solutions available. Target is too hot for a close approach, too sensitive for explosive ordnance. You have the only angle. Find a way. There is no way, Kowalski said, not caring if Command heard the defeat in his voice. It's impossible. He turned to address the assembled snipers, to tell them to pack up, to admit failure, to watch helplessly as a mass murderer won. The words were forming on his lips when a voice cut through the silence. Let me handle it. Every head turned. She stood 20 meters away, apart from the group, a lean figure in desert camouflage, with a rifle case slung across her back. Nobody had noticed her approach. Nobody had heard her arrive. Warrant Officer Cassidy Holt stepped forward into the morning light. Who the hell are you? Kowalski demanded. Navy SEAL sniper, attached to DevGru. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle, but it carried across the ridge with absolute clarity. I've been watching your attempts. I can make the shot. Rodriguez laughed, an ugly, frustrated sound. Lady, we just burned through 13 of the best shooters in theater. What makes you think? Because you're all shooting the same way? Holt interrupted, her eyes never leaving Kowalski's face. Calculating based on current conditions, compensating for what you observe right now. The desert doesn't work like that. Enlighten us, Chen said, his tone skeptical but curious. Holt moved to the edge of the ridge, looking out across the wavering landscape. The heat creates thermal columns, rising air that rotates as it climbs. They move in patterns, predictable if you know what to watch for. You're all shooting when the wind seems stable, but that's actually when the thermals are strongest. There's a cycle about every 7 to 8 minutes where everything aligns. The columns collapse, the mirage settles, and there's a 3-second window of actual clear air. 3 seconds, Mendez said. How could you possibly? I've spent 2 years studying desert ballistics, Holt said simply. 2 years watching heat, learning how air moves over sand and rock. I requested this deployment specifically to test my research. I didn't expect to need it like this. Kowalski studied her. Mid-30s maybe. Weathered skin, steady hands, eyes that didn't blink enough. He'd seen that look before on operators who'd gone so deep into their specialty, they'd emerged somewhere beyond normal human capability. You're serious? Completely. We have 24 minutes. Then I should start now. Rodriguez stepped forward. Hold on. She just shows up, no introduction, no credentials, and we're supposed to hand over our last chance to, she's DevGru. Kowalski interrupted. That's credential enough. And she's right about one thing our way isn't working. He turned to Holt. You need a spotter. No, they'd distract me. I need silence and space. You've got it. Everyone back to the vehicles, now. There was grumbling protest, but they moved. Only Kowalski remained watching as Holt unpacked her rifle with movements so economical they seemed choreographed. It was a custom Macmillan TAC 50 modified in ways he didn't immediately recognize. This really possible? He asked quietly. Holt settled behind the rifle, not answering immediately. She was studying the desert through her scope, watching the air itself, seeing things invisible to everyone else. In 19 minutes, she said, there will be a thermal collapse. The wind will drop to 6 knots from the northwest for approximately 3 seconds. The mirage will clear. I'll have one chance. And if you're wrong about the timing, then 300,000 people that die and I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I failed them. She looked up at him and he saw something in her eyes that made him step back. But I'm not wrong. How can you be sure? Because I've been watching this desert breathe for 2 years, Senior Master Sergeant. I know its rhythms better than I know my own heartbeat. Now please, I need quiet. Kowalski retreated to where the others waited by the vehicles 40 meters back. Someone had binoculars trained on Nazari's position. Someone else was watching Holt. Everyone was checking their watches. 18 minutes. Holt didn't move. She lay behind the rifle, perfectly still, barely seeming to breathe. She wasn't looking through the scope. Her eyes were on the desert itself, on the way heat danced above the sand, on patterns only she could perceive. 15 minutes. She's not even preparing to shoot, Rodriguez muttered. What's she waiting for? For the desert to tell her when, Chen said, and there was something like awe in his voice. She's not calculating the shot. She's feeling it. 12 minutes. Nazari's radio crackled. They couldn't hear the words, but they saw him pick it up, saw him speak, saw him laugh again. He was receiving updates from his network hearing about the failed American snipers enjoying his impending victory. 10 minutes. Holt's breathing changed. It deepened, slowed, became so subtle that watching her chest was like watching the desert itself breathe. She was synchronizing with something matching a rhythm nobody else could hear. 8 minutes. The wind gusted hard, kicking up dust devils across the plateau. Then it died completely, the sudden stillness, eerie and profound. 7 minutes. Holt shifted slightly, bringing her eye to the scope for the first time. Her finger moved to the trigger guard, not touching the trigger itself. Not yet. 6 minutes. Command, this is Overwatch, Kowalski said into the radio. Prepare for shot attempt. Stand by. Overwatch, you have 5 minutes, 40 seconds. 5 minutes. The mirage seemed to intensify, the air so thick with heat that the entire plateau appeared to be underwater. Nazari was a blur, a heat shimmer barely distinguishable from the rocks around him. 4 minutes. Holt's lips moved soundless, counting something. Her finger touched the trigger, now light as a whisper. 3 minutes. And then, impossible to predict, if you hadn't spent 2 years studying this specific phenomenon, the desert exhaled. The thermal columns collapsed all at once, like a curtain dropping. The mirage vanished. The air cleared. For 3 seconds, maybe only 3 seconds, the 4,000 meters between rifle and target became a straight, clean line through perfectly still air. Holt fired. The shot cracked across the desert, and everyone stopped breathing. 6 seconds. 6 seconds of absolute silence, of hanging between success and catastrophic failure, of 300,000 lives balanced on a single copper-jacketed round traveling at 2,800 feet per second. 6 seconds of the longest prayer any of them had ever said. Through his high-powered optics, Kowalski saw Hassan Nazari's head snap backward, saw the detonator fall from his hands, saw the blood spray and the body crumple and the sudden complete stillness where a monster had been laughing. Command, this is Overwatch, Kowalski said, his voice shaking. Target down, confirmed kill, threat neutralized. The radio exploded with voices, with cheers, with demands for confirmation and verification and details. Kowalski ignored them all, walking toward where Holt was already breaking down her rifle, her movements as calm and methodical as if she'd just finished a training expedition. How did you know, he asked. How did you know exactly when? Holt looked at him, and for just a moment he saw exhaustion in her eyes. Not physical exhaustion, something deeper. The exhaustion of someone who'd carried impossible knowledge and finally been able to use it. The desert told me, she said simply. I just had to listen. Behind them, the other snipers were gathering, staring at her with expressions mixing disbelief, respect, and something close to fear. Rodriguez approached slowly, like someone approaching a holy site. That was 4,083 meters, he said quietly. In variable wind, through thermals, with 300,000 lives on the line. That's not possible. It's possible if you understand the environment instead of fighting it. Holt finished packing her rifle. You were all trying to compensate for conditions. I worked with them. That's the difference. Who are you? Chen asked. I mean, really, where did you train? Everywhere that would teach me, and nowhere that mattered. Holt shouldered her rifle case. Senior Master Sergeant Kowalski, I need to file my after-action report and return to my unit. Wait, Kowalski said. Just wait. We need to debrief to understand what you did to... No, you don't. Her voice was gentle but final. What I did can't be taught in a classroom or replicated in training. It requires years of observation of becoming part of the environment you're operating in. Most snipers will never have that time. They'll never need to. But if they do, they'll find their own way. Like I did. She turned to leave, then paused. The thermal collapse happens twice a day in this desert. Just before dawn and 3 hours after sunset. If you'd waited until tonight, you might have had better luck. We didn't have until tonight, Kowalski said. I know, that's why I took the shot. She started walking toward a dusty SUV parked beyond the ridge, a vehicle nobody had noticed arrive. Will we see you again? Kowalski called after her. Holt stopped her back to him. I hope not, Senior Master Sergeant. Because if you see me again, it means something has gone very wrong. She continued walking. Stay safe out here and listen to the desert. It has more to say than you think. She climbed into the SUV and drove away, disappearing into the heat shimmer like a mirage herself. Kowalski stood watching until long after she'd vanished, the radio still crackling with celebratory voices he didn't hear. Chen approached, standing beside him in silence. Who was she really? Chen finally asked. I don't know, Kowalski admitted, but command will have answers. He was wrong. When he called it in later, when he requested Holt's service record and deployment history, he found almost nothing. A thin file with basic information, a series of deployments to desert regions, and a single notation in the comments section. Silent Echo, specialized environmental operations, top secret clearance, need to know basis only. Silent Echo, Rodriguez repeated when Kowalski shared what little he'd learned. That's what they call her. Why? Because she moves through environments like an echo moves through space, Chen said softly. There and gone, impossible to pin down. You only know she was there because of what she leaves behind. What she'd left behind was 300,000 lives saved and 13 humbled snipers who would never quite look at the desert the same way again. But that night, lying in his bunk, Kowalski thought about those 3 seconds. Those impossible 3 seconds when the desert had exhaled and the world had become clear, and a woman nobody knew had done the impossible. He thought about how she'd watched for 19 minutes, not calculating, but listening, becoming part of the environment, until she knew its rhythms like music. He thought about the absolute certainty in her voice when she'd said, I'm not wrong. And he wondered how many other impossible shots she'd made, how many other missions had succeeded, because someone called Silent Echo had appeared from nowhere and disappeared into nothing, leaving only whispers and saved lives in her wake. The answer, he suspected, was something he'd never be cleared to know. But somewhere out there in some other desert or mountain range or jungle, the environment was breathing its own unique rhythm. And somewhere Cassidy Holt was learning to listen. The SUV's engine was still humming in the distance when Rodriguez broke the silence. That's it. She just leaves. Kowalski didn't answer. He was staring at the plateau where Hassan Nazari's body lay cooling in the sun, then back at the empty road where Holt had disappeared. The math didn't compute. 4,000 meters. Variable wind. Thermals that would make a physicist weep. And she'd done it like breathing. Senior Master Sergeant, Chen said, his voice tight. Command is asking for confirmation. They want ballistic data, wind readings, scope settings. Tell them we don't have it. Sir, she didn't use our equipment, didn't consult our data. Hell, she didn't even use a spotter. Kowalski turned to face the group. We can't give them information we don't have. Martinez stepped forward, the Delta operator's face grim. That's going to be a problem. Command will want a full debrief. They'll want to know how a SEAL nobody's heard of made an impossible shot. Kowalski finished. Yeah, I'm aware. His radio crackled. Overwatch, this is command. We need immediate verification of the kill. Drone surveillance in 30 minutes. Copy that, command. Kowalski checked his watch. Cooper Davies, you are with me. We're going to confirm the body. Bad idea, Chen said immediately. She said the area was rigged with motion sensors. If Nazari had backup, then we'll deal with it. But command needs confirmation, and I'm not sending back a report based on what we think we saw through a scope. Kowalski grabbed his rifle. The rest of you pack up. We move in 20. The approach to Nazari's position took 40 minutes of careful navigation through terrain that wanted them dead. The heat had climbed past 110 degrees. Sweat poured into their eyes. Their boots sank into sand that grabbed and held like quicksand. Cooper stopped suddenly. Movement, 3 o'clock. Everyone dropped weapons raised. A vulture circled overhead, then another. They'd found Nazari faster than the Americans had. Just birds, Davies said, but his finger stayed on the trigger. They moved forward slower now. Kowalski's mind kept replaying Holt's shot. The way she'd waited. The absolute certainty. 23 years in special operations, and he'd never seen anything like it. There, Cooper whispered. Nazari's body lay sprawled across the rock, exactly where they'd seen it fall. The detonator sat 3 feet from his outstretched hand, its display dark. Inactive. Kowalski approached carefully, scanning for tripwires, pressure plates, anything that might turn this confirmation into a funeral. He knelt beside the body, checking vitals he knew wouldn't be there. The bullet had entered just below Nazari's left eye, traveling at a slight downward angle. The exit wound had removed most of the back of his skull. Clinical. Precise. Absolutely lethal. Jesus, Cooper breathed. That's a perfect kill shot. At 4,000 meters. How is that even? Don't. Kowalski stood up. Don't try to make sense of it. Just accept it happened. Davies was examining the detonator with gloved hands. This is sophisticated work. Military-grade components. The trigger mechanism is exactly what Intel said: pressure, sensitive, and radio-linked. If he'd let go, if we jammed his signal, if we'd spooked him into running, 300,000 dead, Kowalski finished. I know. Sir, look at this. Davies pointed to the device's display. Timer shows 84 seconds remaining when it was deactivated. 84 seconds. The number hit Kowalski like a fist. 84 seconds. Less than a minute and a half between Holt's shot and mass casualty event. She'd been cutting it closer than any of them realized. Cooper was photographing the scene, documenting everything for command. They're going to want to know who she was, how she knew, why she was even here. Good luck getting answers, Kowalski muttered. Something tells me Warrant Officer Holt doesn't exist in any database we can access. His radio crackled again. Overwatch Command, drone overhead in 5 minutes. What's your status? Target confirmed dead. Detonator secured. We're clear. Copy. Stand by for extraction. A pause. Overwatch, we need to talk about your shooter. Her service record is flagged at levels above my clearance. I'm being told to drop all inquiries. Kowalski looked at the body, at the perfect kill shot at the detonator that had come within 84 seconds of genocide. Understood, Command. We'll include what we can in the report. That's not good enough, the Secretary of Defense himself is asking. Then tell the Secretary that someone saved 300,000 lives today, and maybe that should be enough. Kowalski cut the transmission before Command could respond. Davies stared at him. You just told Command to back off, sir, with respect. That's career suicide, probably. Kowalski started walking back toward their position. But something about this doesn't sit right. She shows up, makes an impossible shot, and disappears. Command suddenly can't access her records. We're being told to drop it. He stopped, turning to face them. What does that tell you? Cooper answered first. Black Ops, deep cover. Something so classified that even asking questions gets doors slammed. Exactly, which means we witnessed something we weren't supposed to see. And the smartest thing we can do is forget it ever happened. They walked in silence for several minutes before Davies spoke again. I can't forget that shot. I've been doing this for 12 years. I've trained with the best. I've seen kills that seemed impossible. But that, he shook his head, that was something else entirely. She said she'd been studying desert ballistics for 2 years, Kowalski said. Watching thermal patterns, learning how air moves over sand and rock. That's insane, Cooper said. Who does that? Who spends 2 years studying one environment just to someone who knew she'd need it? Kowalski interrupted. Someone who was preparing for exactly this scenario. The implications hung between them like the desert heat. Back at their vehicles, the other snipers were already packed and ready to move. Rodriguez approached immediately. Command called. They want statements from everyone who witnessed the shot. They'll get them, Kowalski said. But keep it factual. What you saw, not what you think it means. What I saw was impossible, Rodriguez said flatly. How do I report that? Carefully. Martinez had his laptop out, already pulling up ballistic software. I've been running the numbers. Even with perfect conditions, which we definitely didn't have, the probability of a first shot kill at that range is less than 3%. With the conditions we had, less than 1%. She had no business making that shot. And yet she did, Chen said. He was sitting on the hood of his vehicle staring out at the desert. I've been thinking about what she said, about working with the environment instead of fighting it, about listening to the desert. That's not science, Martinez argued. That's mysticism. You can't feel your way to a perfect ballistic solution. Can't you? Chen turned to face him. How many times have you made a shot because something felt right, because you knew in your gut that the conditions were perfect even when the number said otherwise? Martinez didn't answer. She just took that instinct and weaponized it. Chen continued. Spent 2 years turning gut feeling into reliable science. That's not mysticism, that's dedication on a level none of us can comprehend. Kowalski's radio interrupted them. All units, this is command. Drone surveillance confirms target neutralization. Explosive ordnance disposal en route to secure the device. Extraction birds inbound. ETA 20 minutes. Good work, Overwatch. Good work. As if they'd accomplished anything except watching 13 failed attempts before a ghost showed up and saved the day. The helicopters arrived on schedule, Blackhawks that kicked up dust storms as they landed. Kowalski watched his team board each sniper carrying equipment that hadn't been good enough skills, that hadn't been sufficient experience, that hadn't mattered. He was the last one aboard. As the helicopter lifted off, he looked down at the desert below, at the plateau where Nazari had died, at the ridgeline where Holt had performed a miracle. The crew chief leaned over, shouting above the rotor noise. Heard you had some excitement today. You could say that. Command's already talking about it. Longest confirmed kill in theater. Maybe longest ever. Who made the shot? Kowalski looked at him for a long moment. Nobody you'd know. The crew chief frowned but didn't push it. Smart man. 30 minutes later, they touched down at Forward Operating Base Shank. Command was waiting, a full bird colonel with an expression that promised uncomfortable conversations. Senior Master Sergeant Kowalski with me. Now. They walked to a secured briefing room, climate-controlled and windowless. The colonel closed the door and activated a white noise generator before speaking. What the hell happened out there? We neutralized the target, sir. Mission success. Don't play games with me. Kowalski, I've got 13 statements that all say the same thing. Some SEAL nobody's heard of showed up and made a shot that shouldn't be possible. I tried to pull her service record and get blocked at classification levels I didn't know existed. So I'm going to ask you again, what happened? Kowalski chose his words carefully. A highly skilled operator performed her duty under extreme circumstances. The threat was eliminated. 300,000 civilians are alive because of her actions. I need more than that. With respect, sir, I don't think you do. I think you need exactly that and nothing else. Because anything more is going to open doors neither of us wants opened. The colonel stared at him. You're protecting her. I'm protecting the mission, sir. Whatever Warrant Officer Holt is involved in, it's clearly above our pay grades. Pushing for answers is only going to create problems. The Secretary of Defense is already asking questions. Then respectfully suggest to the Secretary that some questions are better left unanswered. We got the win. The target is dead. The civilians are safe. That should be enough. The colonel sat down heavily. You know what the worst part is? You're probably right, but this is going to haunt me. That shot, those conditions, the timing. He looked up at Kowalski. Was she really that good? Better, sir. Better than any of us realized was possible. A knock at the door interrupted them. A young lieutenant entered holding a secure tablet. Sir, you asked to be notified about the detonator analysis. Go ahead. EOD confirmed it was fully functional. Timer analysis shows it was 84 seconds from activation when the target was neutralized. They also found something else. The lieutenant hesitated. The detonator had a backup trigger. Motion activated. If anyone had approached within 500 meters, it would have activated immediately. Kowalski felt ice in his stomach. We approached the body. We were within 500 meters. Yes, sir. But the backup trigger was disabled. Single bullet through the control circuit. The same bullet that killed the target also destroyed the failsafe. Silence filled the room. That's not possible, the colonel finally said. To know the detonator had a backup trigger to calculate a shot that would kill the target and disable the failsafe simultaneously. She knew, Kowalski said quietly. Somehow she knew exactly where to place that shot. The lieutenant cleared his throat. There's more, sir. We ran ballistic analysis on the bullet trajectory. Given the angle of entry and the internal damage pattern, the shot was calculated to avoid hitting the primary trigger mechanism while destroying the backup. A deviation of even 2 centimeters in any direction would have either missed the backup entirely or hit the primary trigger and detonated the device. 2 centimeters, the colonel repeated. At 4,000 meters, through variable wind and thermal distortion. Yes, sir. The colonel looked at Kowalski. Who is she? I don't know, sir, but I'm starting to think we're better off not knowing. The lieutenant left, and the colonel stood up, walking to the wall where a map of Afghanistan hung. In 3 weeks, I'm supposed to brief the Joint Chiefs on special operations capabilities in theater. What do I tell them about this? Tell them we have assets capable of extraordinary things when circumstances demand it. Tell them the system works. The system, the colonel laughed bitterly. The system failed 13 times before a ghost showed up and saved us. That's not a system, that's luck. Luck is preparation meeting opportunity, sir. She was prepared. We gave her the opportunity. That's the system working exactly as designed. The colonel turned to face him. You really believe that? Kowalski thought about Holt's eyes, about the exhaustion he'd seen there, the weight of knowledge nobody else carried. About 2 years spent studying a single environment, preparing for a shot she somehow knew she'd need to take. I believe she was exactly where she needed to be when she needed to be there. Whether that's luck, fate, or exceptional planning by people smarter than us, I couldn't say. But I'm grateful for it. The colonel nodded slowly. All right, your team is dismissed. File your reports, standard classification. Don't mention the operator by name or unit designation. Just list it as supporting sniper element. Understood. Yes, sir. And Kowalski, if you ever see her again, if she ever shows up on another operation, I'll buy her a beer and thank her. That's all. Good man. Dismissed. Kowalski walked out into the late afternoon heat. His team was gathered near the barracks waiting for him. Rodriguez spoke first. Well, Woodbom, we're clear. File standard reports, no names. Mission success. Move on. That's it, Martinez asked. We're just supposed to forget about... Yes, Kowalski said firmly. We forget about it. We forget about her. We remember that 300,000 people are alive today, and we be grateful we were part of making that happen. Everything else is above our clearance and beyond our concern. Chen stood up. I'm not going to forget that shot. I'm going to spend the next year trying to understand what she did. Good luck with that, Kowalski said. Something tells me you could spend 10 years and still not get there. That night, lying in his bunk, Kowalski pulled up the limited information he'd managed to gather on Cassidy Holt. The file was thin to the point of transparency. Birth date, recruitment date, basic training, scores all unremarkable. Then a gap of 6 years with only a single notation, specialized training, details classified. After that gap, a series of deployments to desert regions. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, short deployments, rarely more than a few weeks. No unit assignments listed, no commanding officers named, just dates and locations. And that designation, Silent Echo. He'd asked around quietly, carefully, using contacts in JSOC and SOCOM. Most had never heard the name, those who had refused to discuss it. One crusty sergeant major in Virginia had simply said, "Don't ask questions you don't want," answered Dale. "Some people operate on levels we can't comprehend. Be grateful they're on our side." Kowalski closed the file and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere out there, Cassidy Holt was probably already on another mission in another desert, preparing for another impossible shot. Learning the rhythms of another environment, becoming part of it, waiting for the moment when everything aligned. He wondered how many times she'd done this, how many catastrophes she'd prevented that nobody knew about. How many targets had died never knowing she was there. Silent Echo, a ghost that moved through environments like sound, through space. There and gone, impossible to track. You only knew she existed because of what she left behind. And what she left behind was hope. The knowledge that when everything failed, when the impossible loomed, there was someone who could step out of the shadows and make miracles happen. Kowalski closed his eyes and for the first time in 23 years of military service, said a prayer for someone he'd probably never see again. A prayer of thanks and protection for a woman who'd saved 300,000 lives with a single bullet and 84 seconds to spare. The desert had told her when to shoot. He just hoped it would keep her safe when her number was up and the conditions weren't perfect and the impossible became truly impossible. But something told him Cassidy Holt didn't believe in impossible. She just believed in listening. 3 weeks later, Kowalski was finishing paperwork at Bagram Airfield when his secure phone rang. The number showed only zeros. Senior Master Sergeant Kowalski. You need to stop looking for her. The voice was male, flat, completely devoid of emotion. Effective immediately. Who is this? Someone who's noticed your inquiries about Warrant Officer Holt. Delete every file you've accessed. Forget every question you've asked. This is your only warning. The line went dead. Kowalski stared at the phone, his pulse hammering. He'd been careful with his research, using personal contacts, avoiding official channels. Someone had been watching anyway. He deleted the files, all of them. Then he cleared his browser history, wiped his hard drive's recent activity, and sat in silence, wondering what kind of operation required that level of protection. 2 days later, Rodriguez found him in the chow hall. The Marine dropped into the seat across from him, his face ashen. "We need to talk. Privately." They walked to an empty corner of the base behind a maintenance hangar where the generator noise would mask their conversation. "I got a visit last night," Rodriguez said, his voice shaking. "2 men in suits. No names, no badges, no explanation. They told me to forget about the shot. Said if I mentioned it again, even to other team members, there would be consequences." "What kind of consequences?" "They didn't specify. They didn't need to. The way they looked at me." Rodriguez stopped, swallowing hard. "I've been in combat for 8 years. I've faced enemy fire, survived. IEDs, watched friends die. But those 2 men scared me worse than anything I've seen in theater." Kowalski felt cold despite the midday heat. "Did they mention her by name?" "No, they just said the operator in question. But we both know who they meant." "Anyone else get visited?" "Martinez, Chen, Cooper, probably all of us by now." Rodriguez looked around nervously. "What did we witness out there? What's so important that—" "Stop." Kowalski grabbed his arm. "Don't finish that question. Don't even think it. Whatever's happening, it's way beyond us. We do what they said. We forget. How am I supposed to forget a shot like that?" "I don't know. But we find a way, because the alternative—" Kowalski didn't finish. He didn't need to. Rodriguez left without another word. That night, Kowalski dreamed about the desert, about heat shimmer and thermal columns, and a woman who could read the wind like poetry. He woke up sweating, the images already fading, leaving only a sense of something important slipping away. 6 weeks after the Nazari kill, command reassigned him to a training detail in Qatar. Chen went to Iraq. Martinez to Syria. Rodriguez back to Camp Pendleton. The entire team scattered across the globe, broken up so thoroughly it couldn't have been coincidence. Kowalski spent 3 months teaching basic marksmanship to new recruits, wondering if this was punishment or protection. Maybe both. Then on a Tuesday morning in November, everything changed. He was reviewing qualification scores when his commanding officer walked in, a captain named Reeves, who usually stayed behind his desk. "You're being activated. Pack for cold weather. Wheels up in 4 hours." "Where am I going?" "Can't tell you yet. You'll be briefed on the plane." Reeves paused at the door. "And Kowalski, you're the only one from your previous team being called up for this. That tell you anything?" It told him plenty, none of it good. The flight was on an unmarked C-13. Oh no, unit designations, no tail numbers. That made sense. The only other passengers were 2 men in civilian clothes who didn't speak, and a woman in army fatigues who introduced herself as Major Helen Park. "You're wondering why you're here," Park said once they were airborne. "Among other things, you handled a sensitive operation in Afghanistan approximately 6 weeks ago. Target neutralization at extended range." "Yes." Kowalski's throat tightened. "That's classified." "Not to me, it isn't. I have full clearance on that operation and several others like it. What I need to know is, can you identify the operator who made the final shot?" "I was told to forget that operator existed." "Things have changed." Park pulled out a tablet, showed him a satellite image of a snow-covered mountain range. 72 hours ago, we lost contact with a deep cover asset in the Caucasus Mountains. This asset possesses information that could compromise ongoing operations in 3 countries. We need immediate extraction, but the asset is in a fortified position 8 miles inside hostile territory. "What's that got to do with me?" "The asset won't come out for just anyone. They've requested extraction by Silent Echo specifically. No one else. Problem is, we can't locate Silent Echo. Every channel we have says she's dark, unreachable, possibly on another operation. So we need you to help us find her." Kowalski stared at her. "You think I know where she is?" "I think she trusts you. You're one of 3 people she's worked with who didn't try to investigate her afterward." "Well, who didn't keep investigating after being warned off?" Park corrected. "That matters to people in her line of work." "I don't have any way to contact her. She left before we could." "We know. But you have something better. You have the memory of what she can do. And right now, I need you to convince someone very important that Silent Echo is worth the risk of pulling her off whatever operation she's currently running." The plane began its descent. Through the window, Kowalski saw snow-covered peaks, a landscape as different from Afghan desert as Earth from Mars. They landed at a military installation that officially didn't exist. No signs, no flags, just buildings and people who moved with the purposeful intensity of special operations. Park led him to a conference room where a three-star general waited along with two civilians whose agencies Kowalski could only guess at. Senior Master Sergeant Kowalski, the general said, tell us about the Nazari operation. For the next hour, Kowalski walked them through everything. The 13 failed attempts, Holt's arrival, the way she'd waited for thermal collapse, the impossible shot, the 84-second margin. He left nothing out this time, despite the warnings, despite the threats. Something about this room said honesty was more important than protection. When he finished, one of the civilians spoke. You witnessed her fire once. One shot. Based on that single observation, do you believe she's capable of what we're about to ask her to do? What are you asking her to do? The general pulled up a new satellite image, a compound perched on a mountainside surrounded by cliffs and forest. Our asset is here. The only approach is a narrow valley with clear lines of sight for 2 miles. They've got thermal imaging, motion sensors, and automated defense systems. Anything that moves in that valley gets shredded. So send a drone strike. The asset is being held in a room with 3 hostages, civilians, aid workers who were in the wrong place at the wrong time. We take out the compound, we kill them too. Kowalski studied the image. What's the solution? There is no solution, except one. The general zoomed in on a ridgeline across from the compound. From here, it's possible to see into the room where the asset is held. We've confirmed this with satellite imaging. A sniper positioned here could theoretically take out the guards, giving the asset time to escape with the hostages. What's the range? 5,800 meters. The number hit Kowalski like a physical blow. 5,800 meters. Almost 3.5 miles. Nazari had been 4,000 and that had seemed impossible. That's beyond human capability, he said flatly. The longest confirmed kill in history is under 4,000 meters. You're asking for something that can't be done. We're asking for silent echo, Park said quietly. Because if anyone can do it, she can. And if she can't, then our asset dies, 3 civilians die, and intelligence that costs 15 years to gather falls into enemy hands. The general leaned forward. I need to know, Sergeant. Based on what you saw, what you witnessed, is she capable of this? Kowalski thought about the desert exhaling, about Holt's absolute certainty, about 84 seconds and 300,000 lives saved because one woman had spent 2 years learning to listen. If the conditions are right, he said slowly, if she has time to study the environment, if she can find that window where everything aligns, yes, I believe she can do it. Then help us find her. I told you I don't know where, Park interrupted him. We're not asking you to find her physically. We're asking you to send a message she'll receive. You're one of 3 people she trusts. If you broadcast the need, she'll hear it. How? There are channels, one of the civilians said. Networks we maintain for exactly this purpose. You make a request through those channels, and it reaches people who might know how to reach her. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but it's our best option. They handed him a script, 3 sentences carefully worded to convey urgency without revealing operational details. Kowalski read it twice, then looked up. If I do this, if she comes, you need to give her everything she needs. No bureaucratic obstacles, no command interference. She works her way, or she doesn't work at all. Agreed, the general said immediately. She'll have full operational authority. Whatever she requests, she gets. And when it's over, you leave her alone. No more tracking, no more monitoring. She goes back into the shadows and you let her. The general and the civilians exchanged glances. That's not something we can promise. Then find another sniper. Silence stretched between them. Finally, the general nodded. All right, she gets her anonymity back, but only if the operation succeeds. She doesn't fail, Kowalski said with certainty he couldn't explain. That's not who she is. They took him to a communications room, sat him in front of a camera, and had him record the message. 3 sentences that would go out through channels he didn't understand to people he'd never meet, hoping it reached one woman who might be anywhere in the world. Silent Echo, this is Overwatch. We have a situation that requires your specific expertise. Lives are at stake. Please respond. Simple, direct, trusting that she'd understand the gravity in those few words. They broadcast it through military networks, intelligence channels, even some civilian frequencies that operated in legal gray areas. Then they waited. 6 hours passed. Nothing. 12 hours? Nothing. Kowalski tried to sleep but couldn't. He kept thinking about Holt's eyes, that deep exhaustion, the weight of impossible knowledge. What if she was already on a mission? What if she was dark because she couldn't be reached? What if his door opened at 0342 hours? Park stood there, her face unreadable. She answered. Kowalski was out of bed and dressed in 90 seconds. They rushed to the communications room where a single line of text glowed on the screen. Overwatch confirmed, sending coordinates, 12 hours. That's it, Kowalski asked. That's her entire response. That's how she works, Park said. Minimal communication, maximum efficiency. She's telling us where to bring her, and she's telling us she needs 12 hours when she arrives. After that, she'll be ready. 12 hours to study a completely new environment. That's not enough time. She spent 2 years in the desert. She doesn't have 2 years. None of us do. Our asset has maybe 48 hours before they're moved to a location we can't reach. If Silent Echo says she needs 12 hours, then 12 hours is what she gets. The coordinates led them to a frozen lake in the middle of nowhere, accessible only by helicopter. They flew in as dawn broke the landscape below a study in white and gray. Nothing like the desert where Holt had performed her miracle. The helicopter set down on the ice. They waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Maybe she's not coming, Kowalski said. She's coming, Park replied. She said she would. And then she was there walking across the ice from the tree line, appearing so suddenly it was like she'd materialized from the cold itself. Same lean build, same economical movements, but different somehow. Harder, more worn. The helicopter door opened. Holt climbed in without greeting, without acknowledging anyone. She sat across from Kowalski, and for the first time he saw her eyes in daylight. They were hollow, haunted, like someone who'd seen too much and forgotten how to unsee it. "Senior Master Sergeant," she said quietly, "you've been looking for me. I stopped when they told me to." "I know, that's why I came." She turned to Park. "Show me the target." Park pulled up the satellite imagery on her tablet. Holt studied it in silence, her expression never changing. When she finally spoke, her voice was flat. "This is a different environment than Afghanistan. Different air density, different thermal patterns, different everything. 12 hours isn't enough. It's all we have," the general said via video link. "Can you do it?" Holt looked at the image for a long time. The shot's possible, but the margin for error is zero. One miscalculation, and the guards have time to execute the hostages before your asset can react. We understand the risks. "Do you?" Holt's eyes met the camera. "Because I don't think you understand what you're asking. Afghanistan was desert and environment I'd spent years studying. This is mountain terrain in winter. The air behaves differently. The cold creates inversions that desert heat doesn't. The wind channels through valleys in ways that don't happen over open sand. You're asking me to learn in 12 hours what should take 12 months. But you'll try." It wasn't a question. Holt closed her eyes. "3 civilians, what are their names?" The question caught everyone off guard. Park checked her notes. "Sarah Reeves, Marcus Chen, Dmitry Volkov, aid workers with Doctors Without Borders." "Sarah Reeves," Holt repeated softly. "Marcus Chen, Dmitry Volkov." She opened her eyes. "All right, I'll try, but I need complete isolation for the next 12 hours. No interruptions, no check-ins, no status updates. I study the environment or I don't take the shot." "Agreed," the general said. They flew her to the ridgeline across from the target compound. Kowalski watched her set up with the same methodical precision she'd shown in Afghanistan, but there was a tension in her movements now, a tightness that hadn't been there before. "You don't think you can do it," he said quietly. "I think the people who sent you to find me are asking for a miracle," Holt replied. "I gave them one in Afghanistan. They want another. But miracles aren't unlimited, Senior Master Sergeant. Eventually you run out. You saved 300,000 people." "I know." She finished setting up her rifle and turned to face him fully. "I know exactly how many people I saved. And I know exactly how many I've failed to save in the operations that didn't make it into your briefing. The weight doesn't balance, Kowalski. It never does." "Why do you do it then?" "Because Sarah Reeves, Marcus Chen, and Dmitry Volkov don't deserve to die in a frozen compound 8 miles from help. Because an asset who spent 15 years gathering intelligence deserves extraction. Because someone has to take the impossible shots, and apparently I'm the one who can't say no." She turned back to her rifle. "Now leave me alone. I have 12 hours to learn how this mountain breathes." Kowalski retreated to the command post they'd set up 500 meters back. Through high-powered optics, he watched Holt settle into position, not looking through her scope, just staring at the valley, at the way wind moved through it, at patterns only she could see. Park joined him. "Think she'll make it?" "I think she'll die trying, and I think that might be the problem." "What do you mean?" "She's not doing this because she wants to. She's doing it because she doesn't know how to stop. Because somewhere along the way, making impossible shots became her entire identity, and now she's trapped in it. That's what makes her good. That's what's going to kill her," Kowalski said. "Not a bullet, just the weight of being the only person who can do what she does. The 12 hours crawled past. Holt never moved, barely seemed to breathe. She was doing what she'd done in Afghanistan, becoming part of the environment, learning its rhythms, waiting for it to tell her when conditions were right. But Kowalski watched the wind patterns through the valley, watched the temperature fluctuations, watched the way cold air sank and warm air rose, creating invisible currents and eddies, and he couldn't see how anyone could predict when those patterns would align. 5,800 meters, 3.5 miles, through mountain wind that shifted without warning, at targets who would execute hostages the instant they realized they were under fire. It was impossible, and Cassidy Holt was going to attempt it anyway because that's what Silent Echo did. Attempted the impossible and somehow made it work over and over until the day she didn't. Kowalski just prayed today wasn't that day. At hour 11, Holt's radio crackled for the first time. Command to Silent Echo. Status update required. She didn't respond. Park looked at Kowalski. Should we? No, she said no interruptions. She meant it. We have protocols. The general needs confirmation that the general needs her to make an impossible shot. Kowalski interrupted. Let her work. But at hour 11 and 40 minutes, intelligence came through that changed everything. Park's face went white as she read the message on her secure tablet. They're moving the asset. New intel says the compound is evacuating in 90 minutes. If we don't extract now, we lose them forever. Kowalski grabbed the radio. Silent Echo, this is Overwatch. Timeline just collapsed. You have 90 minutes maximum. Silence. Holt, do you copy 90 minutes? Her voice came back flat, emotionless. I heard you the first time. Conditions aren't ready. The wind pattern I've been tracking won't align for another 2 hours minimum. You don't have 2 hours. Then people are going to die Overwatch. Because I can't control the weather and I won't take a shot I know will fail. Park grabbed the radio from Kowalski. This is Major Park. We don't have the luxury of perfect conditions. You take the shot with what you have or the mission is scrubbed and 4 people die. Your choice. The silence stretched so long Kowalski thought Holt had cut transmission. When she finally spoke, her voice carried an edge he hadn't heard before. You want me to fire blind into a situation where 1 miss means 3 civilians get executed? You understand what you're asking. I understand we're out of options. No, you don't understand. You're sitting in a warm command post looking at satellite images. You're not the one who has to live with Sarah Reeves' face, Marcus Chen's face, Dmitry Volkov's face every single night for the rest of your life if this goes wrong. You don't carry that weight, I do. Then carry it, Park said coldly, because that's the job. That's what Silent Echo does. Takes the shots nobody else can take and lives with the consequences. Or are you telling me you can't handle it anymore? Kowalski ripped the radio from Park's hand. Don't push her like that. She's not. But Holt's voice cut through, sharp as a knife. Fine, you want the shot. You'll get the shot. But when it fails, when those civilians die because you rushed me, that's on you, Major. Not me. You. The radio went dead. What the hell was that? Kowalski turned on Park. I just gave her the push she needed. These operators, they get in their own heads. Sometimes you have to remind them that hesitation kills more people than bad shots. She's not hesitating. She's being realistic about. She's making excuses, Park interrupted. I've read her file, the real file, not the sanitized version you saw. She's made 17 shots at ranges over 4,000 meters. 17. And you know how many times the conditions were perfect twice. The other 15 times she took the shot anyway and made it work. She's psyching herself out, and I'm not letting her. Kowalski stared at her. 17 shots. How many operations is that? Classified. How many people has she saved? Park hesitated, then said quietly, estimated over 500,000. But that's not 500,000 people alive because one woman keeps taking impossible shots. And you just told her the weight doesn't matter. Kowalski felt rage building in his chest. She's a human being, not a weapon system. You can't just. I can, and I did, because right now 4 more lives are counting on her. She can fall apart later. Right now she shoots. Through the optics, Kowalski watched Holt shift position behind her rifle. Her movements were jerky now, angry, nothing like the fluid grace she'd shown in Afghanistan. She was rattled and rattled snipers missed. His radio crackled. It was Holt, but she wasn't talking to him. She was talking to herself, and she'd apparently forgotten to release the transmit button. Sarah Reeves, Marcus Chen, Dmitry Volkov. Aid workers, doctors, healers. Her voice was barely a whisper. They save lives. I end them. That's the difference. They build, I destroy. But maybe destroying the right target at the right time is its own kind of saving. Kowalski started to respond, but Park grabbed his arm, shaking her head. They listened. The wind's wrong, it's all wrong, gusting 12 to 18 from the northeast, shifting every 40 seconds. Temperature inversion at 3,000 meters, creating downdrafts I can't predict. Humidity rising, which means the air density is changing. Every variable is against me. She went silent for almost a minute. But the desert was against me too. The heat, the mirage, the thermals, all against me. And I made it work because I stopped fighting and started listening. So listen to this mountain. Listen to what it's trying to tell you. Another silence. Longer this time. There it is. Not a pattern, not exactly. More like a rhythm. The wind gusts, then settles for 6 seconds. 6 seconds of relative calm every 2 minutes. Not perfect calm. Nothing like the desert's exhale. But maybe enough. Maybe. Kowalski checked his watch. 72 minutes until the compound evacuated. They needed her to shoot, and they needed her to shoot soon. But if she was finding a pattern, if she was working her way towards certainty, "Command, this is Silent Echo. I have a window. It's not ideal, but it's workable. I'll need confirmation that the asset is ready to move the instant I engage." Park was already on another channel. "Asset team, this is Command. What's your status?" A crackling voice responded. "We're in position adjacent to the holding room, ready to breach on your signal. Be advised, there are 4 hostiles inside with the targets, all armed. If your shot doesn't neutralize them instantly, we'll have a firefight in a confined space with civilians present." "Understood. Stand by." Park switched back to Holt's channel. "You heard that. 4 targets, all armed, all in the same room with the hostages. You need to drop all 4 before any of them can react." "That's not possible," Holt said immediately. "I'm one shooter with 1 rifle. I can take 1 to 1 target, maybe 2 if I'm fast enough with a follow-up shot. But 4, even if I had perfect conditions, which I don't, what if you had a second shooter?" Kowalski's head whipped toward Park. "What are you? Soon. We have another sniper team on standby," Park said. "They've been positioned on a secondary ridge, lower probability angle, but still viable. They were backup in case you couldn't make it. But if you both shoot simultaneously coordinated..." "Who's the second shooter?" Holt demanded. "Marine Scout Sniper Team, Carlos Rodriguez and his spotter. You know them?" A pause. "Rodriguez was in Afghanistan. He's good. But this shot is beyond. He doesn't need to be as good as you. He just needs to hit 1 target while you hit another. The asset team can handle the other 2, once you've created chaos in the room." Kowalski grabbed the radio. "Rodriguez is here. Since when?" "Since we pulled him off leave 36 hours ago," Park said. "We brought him in as contingency. Didn't tell you because we didn't want to undermine Silent Echo's confidence." "Put him on," Holt said. Seconds later, Rodriguez's voice came through. "Silent Echo, this is Rodriguez. Hell of a reunion. What's your range to target?" 4,200 meters. Not as extreme as yours, but still pushing limits in these conditions." "Can you make the shot?" Rodriguez didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was steady. "Honestly, on a range with perfect conditions, I'm maybe 50-50 at this distance. With current wind and temperature variables less than 30%. "Then why are you here?" "Because I watched you do the impossible once. Figured maybe some of that would rub off. And because 3 civilians don't deserve to die while I sit on my hands worrying about my hit probability." Holt was quiet for a long moment. "All right, here's how this works. I'll take the guard position northeast corner of the room. Intel photos show him standing near the window, which gives me the clearest shot. You take the guard's southwest corner. He's partially obscured, but if you aim for center mass, you should have enough target. And the other 2, the asset team breaches the instant they hear our shots. In the confusion, they take down the remaining guards before anyone can execute hostages. It's not a perfect plan." "It's the only plan we've got," Rodriguez finished. "I'm in. Tell me when to shoot." Park cut in. "How long until you're ready?" Holt's answer sent ice through Kowalski's veins. "The win window I'm tracking arrives in 11 minutes. We shoot then or not at all?" 11 minutes. Park checked her tablet. "That leaves us 61 minutes until evacuation, cutting it close." "It's not close. It's precise. There's a difference." Holt's voice had changed again, becoming the calm, certain tone Kowalski remembered from Afghanistan. She'd found her center. "Rodriguez, you need to sync your breathing with mine. When I give the countdown, we fire simultaneously. Not 1 second apart, not half a second. Simultaneous. Understood?" "Understood. How do we sync?" "Listen to my breathing over the radio. Match it. Slow it down. Find the space between heartbeats. That's where the shot lives." Kowalski watched through optics as both snipers settled into their positions. Holt on the high ridge, Rodriguez 500 meters to the south on his lower perch. Two shooters, two impossible shots coordinated across distance by nothing but radio and trust. Command, this is Asset Team Leader. We've got movement in the compound. They're starting to pack equipment. Looks like they might be moving up their timeline. Park's jaw clenched. How long do we have? Maybe 30 minutes. Maybe less. Holt, did you copy that? I copied. Doesn't change anything. The win window is in 9 minutes now. We shoot then, or we don't shoot at all. What if we don't have 9 minutes? Then we don't shoot, and you explained to Sarah Reeves' family why you wouldn't give me the time I needed to save her life. Park looked at Kowalski, who shook his head. She's right. You push her to shoot before she's ready, and we're just gambling. At least this way, we're giving her the conditions she needs. 8 minutes. Through the optics, Kowalski could see into the holding room. 4 guards exactly as Intel had reported. 2 near the windows, 2 by the door. The 3 hostages sat on the floor in the center, zip-tied and blindfolded. Sarah Reeves looked young, maybe late 20s. Marcus Chen was older, graying at the temples. Dmitry Volkov had a bandage on his head, probably from resisting capture. 7 minutes. One of the guards said something that made the others laugh. Then he walked over to Sarah Reeves and kicked her. Not hard, just enough to make her flinch. Entertainment. Kowalski's hands balled into fists. 6 minutes. Rodriguez, how's your breathing? Holt's voice was almost meditative now. Synced. I can feel your rhythm. Good. At the 4-minute mark, we start final calculations. Wind speed, direction, temperature, barometric pressure. Feed everything into your ballistic computer and then forget it. The computer gives you the starting point. Your instinct makes the final adjustment. Copy that. 5 minutes. The guard kicked Sarah again, harder this time. She cried out, the sound audible through the compound's window. Stay calm, Holt whispered, and Kowalski realized she wasn't talking to Rodriguez. She was talking to Sarah Reeves as if her words could somehow reach across 3.5 miles of frozen air. Stay calm, we're coming. Just a few more minutes. 4 minutes. Final calculations now, Holt said. Wind at 14 knots northeast bearing. Temperature -6 Celsius. Humidity 63%. Barometric pressure dropping. Rodriguez, confirm your readings. Wind 12 knots from my position, same bearing. Temperature -8. Humidity 61. Pressure steady. Different microclimates. We're shooting through different air. That's going to create bullet drift variance. How much variance? Unknown, but we adjust. I'm compensating for the colder air on my route. You do the same. 3 minutes. Kowalski's radio crackled. Command asset team. They're bringing in vehicles. Looks like they're evacuating now. I repeat, evacuation is starting now. Holt. I heard. 2 minutes 40 seconds until my window. Can the asset team delay? Negative. If we engage now, we blow our position and lose surprise. Then we wait. 2 minutes 40 seconds. Trust the timing. We don't have 2 minutes 40 seconds. Yes, you do, because the alternative is a guaranteed failure. Now stop talking. I need to concentrate. Park was pulling up tactical displays, coordination charts, backup plans. Kowalski knew she was preparing for catastrophic failure for the moment when they'd have to scrub the mission and watch 4 people get loaded into vehicles and driven to places they'd never be found. 2 minutes. Holt's breathing slowed even further. In and out. So subtle it was almost inaudible. Rodriguez matched her 2 snipers, breathing as one across 500 meters of frozen mountain. 90 seconds. One of the guards barked an order. The other 3 started moving the hostages toward the door. They were out of time. The evacuation was happening now, and in 30 seconds, the hostages would be outside, loaded into vehicles scattered to the wind. Holt, 70 seconds. The window is in 70 seconds. They're moving the hostages now. I can see that. 65 seconds. Sarah Reeves stumbled as they dragged her up. The guard who'd been kicking her grabbed her hair, yanking her upright. She cried out again. 60 seconds. Command to asset team. Prepare to breach. We're going in. Negative. Holt's voice cracked like a whip. Do not breach. 55 seconds. Give me 55 seconds. We don't have 55 seconds. You do if you trust me. Asset team, hold position. Command, shut up and let me work. The audacity of a warrant officer telling a major to shut up should have resulted in immediate disciplinary action. Instead, Park went silent, watching the screens, watching the seconds tick down. 50 seconds. The guards had all 3 hostages on their feet, now moving them toward the door. In 20 seconds, maybe less, they'd be outside and the shot would become impossible. Too many angles, too much movement, too much chaos. 45 seconds. Marcus Chen collapsed, just dropped to the floor like his legs had given out. The guards shouted at him, kicked him, but he didn't get up. He was buying time. Somehow, impossibly, he knew someone was coming, and he was buying them time with his own body. 40 seconds. Rodriguez, you see that? The hostage on the ground. Yeah, I see it. He's giving us the window we need. When he gets up, they'll move fast. We shoot while he's still down. Understood. Understood. 35 seconds. 2 guards were trying to lift Marcus Chen. He fought them dead weight, making it as difficult as possible. 1 guard raised his rifle, preparing to shoot him. 30 seconds. Holt, if they execute him, they won't. 28 seconds. The wind is shifting. I can feel it starting to settle. 25 seconds. The guard with the rifle pressed it against Marcus Chen's head. Sarah Reeves screamed through her gag. Dmitry Volkov lunged at the guard and took a rifle butt to the face for his trouble. 20 seconds. Settling now. Gusts dropping. 15 seconds until perfect calm. Rodriguez, are you feeling it? I feel it. Wind dying from my position too. Some kind of pressure shift. Temperature inversion collapse. The warm air and cold air are equalizing. Gives us maybe 8 seconds of stable conditions. We shoot at second 4. That's our window. 15 seconds. The guard with the rifle at Marcus Chen's head said something. Even through optics, Kowalski could see his finger tightening on the trigger. 10 seconds. Asset team, on my shot, you breach. Not before. On my shot. Copy. 8 seconds. Marcus Chen looked up at the guard above him. Through the blindfold, he couldn't see anything, but somehow, impossibly, he smiled. 6 seconds. Rodriguez breathing sync. Match me. 3 breaths. In, out, in, hold. 4 seconds. The wind died. Completely. Utterly. The mountain itself seemed to hold its breath. 3 seconds. Target acquired. Northeast Guard Center Mass. Target acquired. Southwest Guard Center Mass. 2 seconds. On my count, 3, 2, 1. The word fire never came. Instead, 2 rifles cracked simultaneously, the sound echoing across the valley like thunder. And Kowalski watched through optics as 5,800 meters and 4,200 meters collapsed into nothing. 7 seconds of flight time. 7 seconds of 3.5 miles and 2.5 miles in air that had been perfectly still, but was already starting to move again. 7 seconds of Sarah Reeves and Marcus Chen and Dmitry Volkov, not knowing if they'd live or die. 7 seconds of 2 snipers who'd done everything humanly possible and now could only wait. 7 seconds of prayer. The Northeast Guard's head snapped back his body following the rifle at Marcus Chen's head, firing wildly into the ceiling as he fell. The Southwest Guard crumpled, clutching his chest, blood spreading across his uniform. The asset team breached the door with explosive charges, smoke and chaos filling the room. The 2 remaining guards spun toward the thread, away from the hostages, and never saw the suppressed rounds that dropped them both. 8 seconds from 2 impossible shots to complete mission success. Targets down, the asset team leader shouted. We have the package. We have all 3 civilians moving to extraction now. Kowalski realized he'd been holding his breath. He exhaled, shaking, and looked at Park. She was staring at the screens like she couldn't believe what she'd just witnessed. Command to Silent Echo and Rodriguez. Confirmed kills. Mission success. Outstanding shooting. Rodriguez came back immediately, his voice cracking with emotion and adrenaline. Holy hell. Holy hell, we did it. We actually did it. But Holt didn't respond. Silent Echo. Do you copy mission success? Nothing. Kowalski grabbed binoculars, scanning the ridge where Holt had been positioned. Her rifle was still there, set up on its bipod. But she wasn't behind it. She was sitting 20 feet away, her back against a rock, her head in her hands, shoulders shaking. She was crying. Silent Echo, the woman who'd saved 500,000 lives, who'd made 17 impossible shots, who'd just saved 4 more people with a bullet fired across 3.5 miles of frozen air, was crying like her heart was breaking. Kowalski started toward her position, but Park grabbed his arm. Leave her alone. She needs someone to tell her she just did the impossible again. She needs someone to remind her she's human. He shook off Park's hand. I'm going to her. You can court-martial me later. He ran across the frozen ground, slipping on ice, not caring. When he reached Holt's position, she didn't look up. She just kept crying, great racking sobs that shook her entire body. Hey, Kowalski said softly, sitting down beside her. Hey, it's over. You did it. They're all safe. I know, she choked out. I know they're safe. That's not... She couldn't finish. Then what? She finally looked at him and her eyes were raw, devastated, carrying the weight no human should have to bear. How many more Kowalski? How many more impossible shots before I miss? Before I fail, before Sarah Reeves or Marcus Chen or someone else dies because I couldn't make the miracle happen? He didn't have an answer. There was no good answer to that question. 17 operations, she continued, 500,000 people saved. And every single time I think this is it. This is the one where I fail. This is where the weight finally crushes me. But then I make the shot anyway and they send me somewhere else and I have to do it again and again. And I can't stop because if I stop, people die. But I can't keep going because every shot takes something from me. And eventually there'll be nothing left. Kowalski sat with her in silence, listening to her cry, understanding finally what Silent Echo really was. Not a ghost, not a miracle worker, just a woman who'd been given an impossible gift and was slowly being destroyed by the burden of using it. What if you said no, he asked quietly. What if next time they called, you just didn't answer? She laughed bitterly through her tears. Then Sarah Reeves dies. Marcus Chen dies. Dmitry Volkov dies. And I live the rest of my life knowing I could have saved them but chose not to. That's not better. That's worse. So what do you do? She wiped her eyes, her breathing steadying. I keep taking the shots. I keep making the miracles until the day I can't anymore. And then I hope someone's there to clean up the mess I leave behind. She stood up, walked back to her rifle, and started breaking it down with mechanical precision. The tears were gone, locked away somewhere deep. Silent Echo was back, professional and distant and ready for the next impossible thing. But Kowalski had seen what was underneath, and he knew he'd never forget it. The extraction helicopter arrived 20 minutes later, rotors chopping through frozen air. Sarah Reeves, Marcus Chen, and Dmitry Volkov were loaded aboard, first wrapped in thermal blankets, shaking from cold and shock and the reality of still being alive. The asset, a gaunt man in his 50s who wouldn't give his name, sat apart from them, clutching a data drive that had cost 15 years of his life to gather. Rodriguez boarded next, his face still flushed with adrenaline. He caught sight of Holt and moved toward her, but Kowalski intercepted him. Not now. I just wanted to tell her. I know what you want to tell her. She knows too, but right now she needs space. Rodriguez looked past him at Holt, who sat in the corner of the helicopter, staring at nothing. Is she okay? No, but she will be, or she won't. Either way, it's not our business. The flight back to base took 40 minutes. Nobody spoke. Sarah Reeves cried silently into Marcus Chen's shoulder. Dmitry Volkov kept touching his face where the rifle butt had split his cheek, as if confirming he was real. The unnamed asset stared at the data drive like it was the only thing tethering him to sanity. And Holt sat in her corner, eyes closed, breathing with the same measured rhythm she'd used before the shot. In and out, perfectly controlled. Like if she stopped controlling something, anything, she'd shatter completely. They landed at the same unmarked facility they'd departed from. Medical teams swarmed the hostages and the asset, but Holt walked straight past them, heading toward a nondescript building at the edge of the compound. Kowalski followed. Where are you going? Debriefing, then I'm leaving. You should rest first. See medical, get cleared. I'm fine. You're not fine. You broke down on that ridge. She spun on him, and the flash of anger in her eyes stopped him cold. What do you want from me, Kowalski? A confession. An admission that I'm barely holding it together. Oh yeah. I'm barely holding it together. I take shots that shouldn't be possible, save people who should be dead, and carry the weight of knowing that one day I'll fail and someone will die because of it. There. Happy. I'm not trying to, then what? Why are you following me? Why do you care? The question hung between them like the cold air itself. Kowalski took a breath, choosing his words carefully. Because I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen hundreds of operators come through. The good ones, the exceptional ones, the ones who redefine what's possible. And you know what happens to them? They burn out. They break. They either quit before they lose themselves completely, or they keep going until there's nothing left. And I'm watching you head toward that second option, and you what? You're going to save me, she laughed bitterly. I'm not one of your operations, Senior Master Sergeant. You can't plan me, execute me, complete me. I am what I am, and what I am is someone who takes impossible shots. That's my purpose. That's all I have. That's not all you have. Really? Then tell me what else there is. Tell me who Cassidy Holt is when she's not Silent Echo. Because I honestly don't remember anymore. She walked away before he could answer, disappearing into the building. Kowalski stood in the cold watching her go, feeling helpless in a way combat had never made him feel. Park approached from behind. Let her go. She's been doing this longer than you know. She has her own ways of coping. Does she, Because from where I'm standing, she's not coping. She's surviving. There's a difference. Is there? Park pulled out her tablet, scrolling through data. 17 operations, 17 impossible shots, 17 mission successes, 0 failures. That's not just surviving, Sergeant. That's excellence. Excellence at the cost of her humanity. Her humanity is what makes her excellent. She feels the weight of every shot because she understands what's at stake. That's why she doesn't miss. That's why she's Silent Echo. And when she finally does miss, when the weight becomes too much and her hands shake at the wrong moment, what happens then? Park didn't answer. They both knew what happened then. Inside the debriefing room, Holt sat across from the same 3-star general who'd authorized the operation. He looked tired, older than his years, carrying at his own weight that nobody else could see. That was extraordinary work, Warrant Officer Holt. The shot itself, the coordination with Rodriguez, the timing, all of it, was textbook perfect under impossible circumstances. Thank you, sir. The Secretary of Defense wants to commend you personally. There's talk of a medal, a promotion, formal recognition. No, the general stopped. I'm sorry. No recognition, no medals, no promotion. That's part of my operational agreement. I work in the shadows, I stay in the shadows. The agreement was made when you first entered the program. Circumstances have changed. Your capabilities are too valuable to keep hidden. We need to study what you do, replicate it, train others. You can't replicate it. Holt's voice was flat final. What I do requires years of environmental study, total immersion in specific climates, learning patterns that most people don't even know exist. You can't teach that in a classroom. You can't compress it into a training program. It requires dedication that borders on obsession, and obsession that borders on insanity. Nevertheless, we need to try. The future of long-range precision operations will be drones and guided munitions and technology that removes the human element entirely. Holt interrupted. I'm not the future general. I'm a temporary solution to problems that shouldn't exist. The fact that you need someone like me means your intelligence failed, your planning failed, your conventional options failed. I'm the Band-Aid you slap on catastrophic failures. Don't try to turn that into a training program. The general studied her for a long moment. You sound bitter. I sound realistic. You sound like someone who's tired of carrying the burden alone. Holt met his eyes. Are you offering to share it? Are you willing to spend 2 years studying a single environment, learning how air moves and wind shifts and thermals build? Are you willing to pull a trigger knowing 3.5 miles away someone lives or dies based on whether you read the conditions correctly? Because if you are, General, I'll happily hand over the burden. Otherwise, stop pretending you understand what I carry. Silence filled the room. The general's age shifted uncomfortably. Finally, the general nodded. All right, no recognition, no publicity. You remain Silent Echo operating in the shadows. But I need your word that when we call, you'll answer. Until I can't anymore. What does that mean? It means eventually I'll miss. Eventually the impossible will actually be impossible. And when that happens, when I fail, you need to be ready to accept it. Don't send me on another operation trying to redeem myself. Don't push me to take another shot to prove I've still got it. Just let me go. Let Silent Echo disappear. Can you agree to that? The general considered, then shook his head. No, because if you fail, if you miss, it won't be because you've lost your edge. It'll be because we sent you into a situation that was truly impossible. And in that case, the failure is ours, not yours. So no, I won't let you disappear. I'll send you to medical, to psychological services, to whatever support you need to recover. And then I'll make sure you never have to take another shot unless you choose to. Holt stared at him. You're lying. I'm not. The system doesn't work like that. The system uses people until they break, then finds new people to use. I've seen it happen dozens of times. Then I'll change the system. For you, I'll change it. Because what you do is too valuable to lose because we didn't take care of the person doing it. The general leaned forward. I mean that, warrant officer. You have my word. For the first time since Kowalski had met her, Holt looked uncertain. Like someone had offered her something she'd given up hoping for and she didn't know whether to trust it. I'll believe it when I see it, sir. Fair enough. Debriefing is complete. You're dismissed. Take 2 weeks leave, go somewhere warm. Try to remember what normal life feels like. Holt stood, saluted, and walked out. But instead of heading to quarters or transport, she walked straight to where Kowalski was waiting outside. You're persistent, apparently. The general offered me leave, 2 weeks. I'm supposed to go somewhere warm and remember what normal life feels like. She looked at him. Problem is, I don't remember normal. Haven't been normal since I was 26 years old and decided to spend 2 years in the Sonoran Desert learning how heat moves. Then don't be normal. Be something else. Like what? Kowalski thought about it. Like someone who just saved 4 lives and gets to see what happened to them. Sarah Reeves, Marcus, Chen, Dmitry Volkov. They're still here getting checked by medical. You want to meet them. See the people you saved. Holt hesitated. I've never met anyone I've saved before. That's not protocol. Too much emotional attachment, too much. To hell with protocol. They're alive because of you. They deserve to know who saved them, and you deserve to see that your impossible shots have faces and names and futures. She looked toward the medical building, uncertainty written across her face. What if it makes it harder? What if seeing them, knowing them, makes the next shot? What if it makes it easier? Kowalski countered. What if instead of carrying abstract weight, you carry real people? People you've met who've thanked you, who've gone on to live lives that wouldn't exist without you. That's not better. That's more pressure. Or it's more purpose. They stood in silence, the cold wind cutting through their uniforms. Finally, Holt started walking toward the medical building. Kowalski followed. Inside, Sarah Reeves sat on an examination table, a blanket around her shoulders, talking quietly with a trauma counselor. When Holt walked in, Sarah looked up confused. Who? This is Warrant Officer Holt, Kowalski said. She's the one who made the shot that saved your life. Sarah's confusion turned to understanding then, to something that might have been awe. She stood up the blanket, falling away, and walked straight to Holt. Before anyone could react, she wrapped her arms around the sniper and held on like drowning. Thank you, Sarah whispered. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I thought I was going to die. I thought Marcus was going to die. I thought... She couldn't finish, just held on tighter. Holt stood, rigid arms at her sides, clearly uncomfortable. Then slowly her arms came up and wrapped around Sarah, returning the embrace. You're welcome, Holt said quietly. I'm glad I could help. They stood like that for almost a minute before Sarah finally pulled back, wiping tears from her eyes. How did you do it? They said you shot from almost 4 miles away. In the mountains. In the wind. How is that even possible? Practice, preparation, luck. That's not luck. That's a miracle. Sometimes they're the same thing. Marcus Chen appeared in the doorway, his left arm in a sling from where the guard had wrenched it. When he saw Holt, he stopped. You're the shooter. I'm one of them. There was a second shooter, Rodriguez. I know. They told us, but you're the one who took the guard with the gun at my head. They showed us the ballistics report, 5,800 meters, through variable wind, while I was on the ground with a rifle pointed at my skull. He walked closer, his voice shaking. Do you know what I was thinking in that moment? I was thinking about my daughter. She's 7 years old, lives in Boston with my ex-wife. I was thinking I'd never see her again. Never get to apologize for all the times I chose work over her. Never get to tell her I loved her. He stopped in front of Holt, tears streaming down his face. But I will see her again. Because of you. I get to go home and hold her and tell her I love her. Because you made an impossible shot at exactly the right moment. How do I thank someone for that? How do I possibly... You live, Holt said softly. You go home. You hold your daughter. You tell her you love her. You live the life you almost lost. That's all the thanks I need. Dmitry Volkov was next, his face swollen from the rifle butt, but grinning despite the pain. Russian bear is hard to kill, he said in heavily accented English. But without you, they would have found way. So thank you, American sniper. You have my gratitude and the gratitude of my wife and 3 children in Moscow. They do not know how close they came to losing me. Because of you, they never have to know. One by one, the 3 people Holt had saved thanked her, hugged her, told her their stories and their futures and everything they'd almost lost. And with each conversation, Kowalski watched something change in Holt's eyes. The exhaustion didn't disappear, but it shifted, became something more bearable, more human. When they finally left the medical building, Holt stood outside in the cold looking up at the stars. I've saved 500,000 people, she said quietly. That's what the records say. 500,000 lives preserved because I pulled a trigger at exactly the right moment. But they were always just numbers, statistics, abstract representations of success. I never met any of them before. And now I have faces. Sarah's face when she hugged me. Marcus's face when he talked about his daughter. Dimitri's face when he mentioned his wife and children. Those faces are going to stay with me. Every time I take a shot, I'll see them. I'll remember what success looks like, what it feels like, what it means. Is that good or bad? I don't know yet. Ask me after the next operation. They stood in silence for several minutes before Holt spoke again. The general offered me 2 weeks leave. I think I'm going to take it. Go somewhere I've never been before. Somewhere I haven't studied, where I don't know the wind patterns or the thermal rhythms. Somewhere I can just be Cassidy Holt for a little while. Where are you thinking? Maybe Scotland. I've heard the Highlands are beautiful in winter, cold and wild and completely different from anywhere I've operated. She looked at him. Want to come with me? The question surprised him. Why would you want me there? Because you're the only person who's seen me break and didn't try to fix me or use me or make me into something I'm not. You just sat with me and let me be broken for a minute. That's worth more than you know. Kowalski thought about his own leave time, about the empty apartment, waiting for him stateside, about 23 years of operations that had left him just as worn as Holt, but in different ways. Yeah, I'll come with you, but I'm not going to Scotland in winter. Let's go somewhere warm, Caribbean maybe, somewhere we can sit on a beach and remember what it's like to not be cold. Holt smiled, the first genuine smile Kowalski had seen from her. Deal. 2 weeks of warmth and beaches and pretending we're normal people. Then we come back and go back to being what we are. And what's that? People who do impossible things because someone has to. Rodriguez found them before they left his gear already packed for transport back to his unit. I just wanted to say that was the greatest honor of my career. Shooting with you. Learning from you. Being part of something that he stopped emotion, choking his words. You did good work, Rodriguez, Holt said. Your shot was perfect. Without it, mine wouldn't have mattered. We saved them together. Will I see you again on another operation? Maybe, if the conditions require it, if the impossible needs to happen again. She extended her hand. Until then, keep practicing. Keep learning. And remember that the best shots aren't the ones that show off skill. They're the ones that save lives. Rodriguez shook her hand, then impulsively hugged her. Thank you for everything. After he left, Holt turned to Kowalski. I lied to him. About what? About seeing him again. I'm going to request that future operations use me solo. No coordination with other shooters, no shared responsibility. Because having Rodriguez there, knowing his shot mattered as much as mine, it helped. It made the weight lighter, and I can't afford for the weight to be lighter. Why not? Because if it gets lighter, I might start to believe I'm not carrying it alone. And the moment I believe that, the moment I start to depend on others being there, that's when I'll miss. Because one day there won't be a Rodriguez, there won't be a second shooter or a backup plan or anyone to share the burden. It'll just be me alone on a ridge somewhere with an impossible shot and no safety net. And I need to be ready for that. I need to know I can carry the full weight by myself. That's not strength, Holt. That's just stubbornness. Maybe, but it's kept me alive and kept my targets dead for 17 operations. I'm not changing the formula now. Park intercepted them at the transport area holding a secure tablet. Before you go, there's something you should see. We debriefed the unnamed asset. The intelligence on that data drive, it just prevented a coordinated attack on 3 European capitals. Estimated casualties if the attack had succeeded, 30,000 people, minimum. She pulled up a map showing planned attack sites in London, Paris, and Berlin. Detailed schematics, timetables, target lists, all prevented because one man had spent 15 years gathering information and one woman had made an impossible shot to save him. 30,000 people who'll never know how close they came to dying, Park continued. 30,000 people who'll go to work tomorrow, kiss their families, live their lives completely unaware that Silent Echo saved them. That's in addition to the 300,000 from the Nazari operation and the countless others from your previous missions. You understand what that means? Holt stared at the tablet. It means I'm not allowed to fail. It means you're doing work that matters on a scale most people can't comprehend, and we're grateful for it. Gratitude doesn't stop the weight from getting heavier. No, but maybe it helps you understand why you're carrying it. Holt handed back the tablet. I need to leave now. 2 weeks. Then I'll be reachable again. Understood. One more thing. Park pulled out a different tablet, this one showing a grainy photograph of a woman in desert camouflage taken from a distance. We're getting requests from other agencies. CIAMI-6 Mossad. They've heard rumors about Silent Echo. They want to borrow you for their operations. The general said no, but the pressure's building. Eventually someone high enough up the chain might override him. Let them try. I work for who I work for. Anyone else can find their own miracle worker. Park smiled slightly. That's what I told him you'd say. See you in 2 weeks, Warrant Officer. Try to have some fun. The flight to the Caribbean took 14 hours with layovers. Kowalski and Holt sat in the back of commercial planes surrounded by tourists and business people who had no idea the woman in seat 23B had saved 30,000 lives just 2 days ago. Holt slept most of the flight, the exhaustion finally catching up with her. When they landed in Barbados, the tropical heat hit them, like a wall so different from Afghanistan's desert heat or the Caucasus's frozen cold that it felt like stepping into another world. They checked into a small resort on the western coast, nothing fancy, just clean rooms and a beach 20 feet from their doors. That first evening, they sat on the sand, watching the sunset, not talking, just existing. I can't read this wind, Holt said suddenly. The way it moves across the water, the patterns it makes, I don't understand it. It's not desert wind or mountain wind. It's something else entirely. That's okay. You're not here to understand it. You're here to just experience it. I don't know how to do that. Experience without understanding. It's not who I am. Then learn. You spent 2 years learning desert wind. Spend 2 weeks learning how to not learn, how to just be. She looked at him. Is that what you do? Just be. I try. 23 years in special operations teaches you that if you don't find moments to just exist, the operational mindset will consume you completely. So yeah, I've learned to just be. Sometimes. They sat in silence as the sun disappeared below the horizon, painting the sky in colors that had no tactical value, no operational significance, no purpose except beauty. On the third day, they were sitting at a beachside bar when a family walked past parents and 2 young children laughing and playing in the sand. The mother looked familiar, and after a moment, Kowalski realized why. That's her. That's Sarah Reeves. Holt looked up startled. Sarah had indeed spotted them, her face lighting up with recognition. She walked over the children running ahead of her. Warrant Officer Holt. Oh my God, what are the chances we're here on vacation my parents paid for? It said we needed to decompress after everything. And you're here too, she turned to her children. Emma Jack, this is the woman I told you about, the one who saved Mommy's life. The little girl, maybe 5 years old, looked up at Holt with wide eyes. You're a superhero. Holt smiled despite herself. No, sweetie, just someone who did her job. But you saved Mommy. That makes you a superhero. Sarah's husband joined them, extending his hand. Thank you. Sarah told me what happened, what you did. I can't. His voice cracked. Thank you for giving me my wife back. They talked for 20 minutes, Sarah sharing that she was leaving Doctors Without Borders, taking a position at a hospital in Boston to be closer to family. I've done enough dangerous work. Emma and Jack need their mother, and I need to be somewhere safe. After they left, Holt stared at the ocean. She's quitting because of what happened, because I saved her. She's not quitting. She's choosing. There's a difference. Is there because it feels like I saved her life just so she could stop doing the work that made her life worth saving in the first place. She's choosing her children over her career. That's not weakness. That's love. But the world needs doctors in dangerous places, people who'll go where others won't. If everyone I save decides to play it safe afterward, what's the point? Kowalski turned to face her fully. The point is they get to choose. You give them their lives back, and what they do with those lives is up to them. You don't get to judge whether they're using their second chances correctly. You just get to be glad they have second chances at all. Holt was quiet for a long time. I never thought about it like that. I always assumed the people I saved would go back to doing whatever they were doing before. Keep fighting the good fight, keep making a difference. But maybe the real gift isn't saving them for the world. Maybe it's saving them for themselves, for their families, for the small personal moments that matter more than any mission. Now you're getting it. Over the next 10 days, they fell into a routine. Mornings on the beach, afternoons exploring the island, evenings talking about everything except operations and impossible shots and the weight of saving lives. Holt learned to read without analyzing every word. Kowalski learned to sit still without planning the next tactical movement. They both learned slowly and imperfectly how to just be. On their last night sitting on the beach under stars that Holt couldn't help but use for navigation. Even on vacation, she finally asked the question that had been building. What happens when I miss, when I finally take the shot that doesn't land and people die because of it? You accept it, you grieve, you learn from it, and you decide whether to take another shot or walk away. That's it. That's your advice. That's reality. You're human, Holt. Humans fail, even exceptional ones, even ones who've made 17 impossible shots. Eventually, number 18 won't work. And when that happens, you'll have to choose who you want to be in the aftermath. Who do you think I'll choose to be? I think you'll take the failure, carry it like you carry everything else, and show up for Operation 19. Because that's who you are. Someone who can't walk away as long as there are people who need saving. She looked at him. Is that healthy? Probably not, but it's honest. And sometimes honest is the best we can do. They flew back to the unnamed facility on a gray Tuesday morning. 2 weeks of warmth and beaches and pretending to be normal was over. Reality waited patient and demanding. The general met them personally, which was never a good sign. "Welcome back. I hope you're rested." "We are. What's the situation?" "Yemen. High-value target fortified position, 6,000 meters. Weather window closes in 48 hours. After that, monsoon season makes the shot impossible for months." 6,000 meters. Farther than she'd ever attempted. Farther than anyone had ever successfully shot. Holt didn't hesitate. "I'll need 12 hours on site to study conditions." "You'll have 10. That's all the window gives us." "Then I'll make it work." The general pulled out a file. "The target is responsible for trafficking operations that have enslaved over 2,000 women and children. Taking him out won't end the network, but it'll fracture it. Give law enforcement across 3 countries the opening they need to dismantle the operation." 2,000 people, Holt repeated quietly. "Give or take, most of them children, some as young as 6 years old." Kowalski saw the shift in Holt's eyes. The weight settling back onto her shoulders heavier than before because now she had faces to attach to the numbers. Sarah Reeves's children, Marcus Chen's daughter. Real people with real lives that depended on her making another impossible shot. "I'll get my gear." As she walked away, the general turned to Kowalski. "She looks better. The leave helped. For 2 weeks. How long until she needs another one?" "Hopefully longer than it takes to find someone else who can do what she does." "You won't find anyone else. What she does isn't teachable. It's not replicable. It's just her." "I know. That's what terrifies me." Kowalski watched Holt disappear into the armory, already shifting back into silent echo, and he realized something that made his chest tight. She wasn't going to stop. Not after Operation 18, not after 19, not after she finally missed and people died because of it. She was going to keep taking impossible shots until they killed her, or broke her so completely there was nothing left to save. And there was nothing he could do about it except be there when she needed someone to sit with her in the aftermath and remind her she was still human. That night before they deployed to Yemen, Holt found him in the equipment bay. "Thank you." "For what?" "For the 2 weeks. For reminding me that life exists outside of operations. For showing me Sarah Reeves and her children. For not trying to fix me or save me or turn me into something I'm not." She paused. "And for being someone I can break down in front of without judgment. Anytime, literally, whenever you need it." "I'm going to miss this shot," she said quietly. "Maybe not this one, maybe not the next one, but eventually I'm going to miss. And when I do, I'm going to need someone to remind me that failure doesn't erase all the successes." "Can you do that?" "Yeah, I can do that." "Good. Because I'm going to Yemen tomorrow to attempt a 6,000-meter shot in conditions I haven't studied, at a target I've never seen to save 2,000 people I'll never meet. And I'm terrified, but I'm going anyway because that's what Silent Echo does." "No," Kowalski said. "That's what Cassidy Holt does. Silent Echo is just the name they gave to someone extraordinary." She smiled, squeezed his shoulder, and walked away to prepare for the impossible. 3 days later in the mountains of Yemen, with 10 hours of study instead of the 12 she'd requested, with wind that shifted unpredictably and heat that created mirages even experience. Desert snipers couldn't read. Cassidy Holt settled behind her rifle and waited for the mountain to tell her when to shoot. And when it did, when that perfect window opened for 3 seconds of impossible clarity, she pulled the trigger and sent a bullet 6,000 meters through conditions that shouldn't allow success. The target dropped. The trafficking network fractured. 2,000 lives were saved by someone most of them would never know existed. Silent Echo had done the impossible again. But Kowalski, watching from the command post, saw the way her hands shook and afterward, saw the way she sat alone for 30 minutes before she could speak, saw the weight getting heavier with each success. He knew the day would come when the impossible became truly impossible, when the weight became too much, when Cassidy Holt would miss and have to live with the consequences. But until that day came, she'd keep taking the shots, keep saving the lives, keep carrying the burden that nobody else could bear, because that's what Silent Echo did. She turned impossible into inevitable, one bullet at a time, until the day she couldn't anymore. And when that day finally arrived, Kowalski would be there sitting beside her, reminding her that being human meant sometimes failing, and that all the lives she'd saved still counted, even if she couldn't save them all. Because in the end, Silent Echo wasn't defined by the shots she made. She was defined by the person who kept showing up to take them, knowing the weight would never get lighter, knowing failure was inevitable, knowing the impossible was exactly that, and pulling the trigger anyway because somewhere people she'd never meet were counting on her to make the miracle happen one more time.